welcome back to Designated Driver, episode 6, and today we're talking about hyperconnected IoT, or as Speedo would like to call it, hyperconnectivity and IoT. And if you can spot the difference, you win a prize. Two big buzzwords, which we're going to try and explain in this episode. But first, we're going to pick up Beck.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how you going?
I am awesome.
Are you?
Yes.
Great.
Except for one small thing.
Okay.
I went for a ride this morning, which means I got helmet head. Hopefully that'll be gone by this afternoon.
Your helmet's on too tight.
It is not too tight.
If you've got indents in your head, the helmet is too tight.
Okay, note to self. So, hyperconnected IoT.
Yes. 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
1, how safe are all these connected things?
Yep.
We're going to answer that today because cybersecurity is really important when you're talking about personal data. 2, why is it good to have all these connected things? Let's highlight some of the good things before we always go to the bad and the ugly.
It's always bad.
And 3, why are we talking about it today?
Indeed.
Why is it so important for us to be aware?
Nothing new about IoT, nothing new about being hyperconnected, but when you put the two together, still nothing new.
Now, this subject's really super interesting. It's part of Speedo's top 10 boring subjects. That's season 1. Don't worry, if you just stay with us till season 2, we'll show you some really interesting things.
Yeah, like for example, we're going to replace Speedo with a talking puppet.
Or even a printout.
That's a much better idea. We reckon that a talking puppet has got more personality than Speedo, even when you don't put your hand in it.
It's time to pick up the non-puppet, the boring.
Yeah, season 1 version of the puppet.
Come on in.
Come on in, Speedo.
Morning, people.
Speedo, how are you?
I am excited.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
This is good.
Yeah.
Why are you excited, Speedo? Where are
Because
we
we're
going?
actually talking about a topic that I'm passionate about. We are going to the Moondog World. It's a huge shed. 1,100 of us went there back in 2019. Motorbike riders, gentleman ride for charity, really good. But once you walk inside, it looks nothing like a shed. They've done it like a tropical island resort thing.
Wow.
Water feature,
Yeah.
double story, nice chairs, open space, retractable roof, great beers,
Love it.
great food.
Love it.
Really nice place.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Fantastic.
And hopefully the weather will improve, because I'm told it's going to be a balmy 37 degrees.
Absolutely, which is why I'm dressed like a tennis professional.
Nice.
Yes, we will try not to zoom down at any point.
Welcome to Designated Driver, where ordinary people are talking extraordinary things in technology. And today it's the super exciting hyperconnectivity IoT discussion. What is it?
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm glad that you found it super exciting because it was my idea and they've been paying me out about it for the past 2 weeks. But there is a proper definition for it, which you can Google, and then there is Speedo's definition, which is effectively,
Not on
they're
Google.
very similar, by the way.
You read Google, obviously, and trying to make it your idea.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's
so
not
you
what
could
everyone
Google
does.
it, but you could listen to Speedo, which is like Google, but Speedo made it up.
But better, rare. More, better, rare.
All right, let's hear it.
The idea of hyperconnectivity is connecting things and people and things together. But why is it hyper? Because you're now going beyond just simple connectivity. You're connecting everything en masse.
But no, so that's connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
The hyper part is actually different to that. If you've read the Google definition, which I sent you,
Through different mediums, but nobody really cares.
Yeah,
because
but
ultimately the outcome is what you and I and everybody else cares about.
Right. So just like take it back a step, right?
I want to talk about hyper.
I think we've got hyper over here. So what we're talking about is connected things. So talk about some of the things that get connected.
Everything. So it could be your toothbrush, it could be adult toys, it could be an umbrella, it could be your car,
Your phone.
it could be your phone, it could be
Smartwatch.
this button. Pretty much everything gets connected. And getting back to the hyper, because I haven't gotten to that point yet, because you brushed me off.
Go back.
No, the important thing about the hyper bit is that it's the interconnectivity of data. So it's not just your toothbrush talking to the toothbrush manufacturer or the app. It's not your light bulbs talking to the light bulb manufacturer. It's the light bulbs being able to understand what your toothbrush is doing. Now that might sound a little bit trivial, but when you do that in the billions, everything is starting to understand what everything else is doing, and that's what makes it hyperconnectivity.
There is a much better example that you could have given, and I'm surprised that you haven't, given
wanted to
your
make you
field of
look good.
expertise, and that was around smart cities and smart buildings, something that you're passionate about.
That is correct. So I see it's my turn to talk again. But the point there is, of course...
Maybe you're better with booze.
That's probably a sad truth in there as well. I'm the designated driver. Cheers.
But I guess if you're trying to give an example of, hyperconnectivity, something that a lot of people have at least read about in the news is probably around smart cities. Or maybe even smart buildings, now that people, even inside your own home, you can do a few smart things. So that's probably more relevant to the general audience as opposed to a smart adult toy.
Well, what's relevant?
Perhaps.
Fair enough. What's relevant though is it's in our homes now as well. So whether you've got internet-enabled light bulbs, you've got a doorbell, you've got a temperature gauge, you've got whatever it is, it's creeping into your home. And even if you didn't buy it, a lot of people are actually getting these as Christmas gifts, which is fine. You get your little Christmas gift of a pet feeder.
Or an adult toy.
Or an adult toy. You guys are obsessed with adult toys. I don't know why. What's going on? But the point here is someone gives you a gift, right? That's wonderful. You connect it to your home, but what you don't understand is that on that little pet feeding toy is a little camera. On that little pet feeding toy is a little microphone, and you've just put that into your house, right? And you have no idea how secure that is. You have no idea who is on the other side looking through that camera.
All right. So you get into what is the benefits and what is the downfalls. However,
yes.
I don't think we've quite discussed the extent of what these devices are.
Okay.
So in terms of in a home, it could be your security cameras. It could be, like you said, your light switches coming on and off. It can be just your computers or your phones.
Could be a simple sensor.
You can then go into offices and businesses that are now doing counting of people in and out. They're also doing testing of your temperature in case you have COVID.
Those are actually all really good examples, and you actually made a really great point, which is rare for you, and that's the type of sensors.
Until that one point.
Yes. But there are sensors that everyday people, whether in the office or at home, come and interact with, temperature sensors or examples that you already gave. Then there are things that we don't necessarily interact with on a daily basis. As an example, we've got thousands of sensors on Sydney Harbour Bridge, and they are monitoring the health of the bridge, reducing maintenance costs, making it more effective, safer, and so on and so forth. But none of us three, and more than likely nobody of out of our audience, would have actually interacted with any of those sensors.
No, that's
and
very
there's
true.
a lot of that happens already.
It's a very good point,
Well,
Speedo.
thank
Probably
you.
one that you've had this year and the only one you will have this year.
It's almost like he's not a talking puppet.
But
Almost.
again, we can do IoT in terms of environment. So we can be testing water, we can be testing waste. There's a whole bunch of things that we can be
Very true.
monitoring to ensure that we are utilizing energy in the right way.
There is a subtle difference between what we've been doing for the past few years, as in potentially decades, with regards to sensors. Airplanes, they've got sensors everywhere, as an example. And what we're now calling hyperconnectivity. And that's to the point that Sven was mentioning before. While previously, all these sensors used to talk to each other and maybe the manufacturer.
Yeah, like a closed loop of information.
Correct. One of the ways we were trying to find that MH370, the Malaysian airline that crashed into the ocean and nobody could find it, was the sensor on the GE motors was sending a keep alive signal to the satellites, right? But the hyperconnectivity part comes into play where these sensors are connected to everything else in the wider internet.
Yes.
And that, with it comes obviously the challenges around managing the data, and more importantly, what do we do with that data that we collect?
Well, I think that kind of goes into what the benefits and the downfalls are of each of these devices and big data as a whole, really.
Yeah, and I mean, there are tons of benefits. From an environmental perspective, we're getting more data than we've ever received before.
Sorry, can you just be a little less boring?
Wow. Okay. Smart
Let me
cities.
help you, Sven.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, we're getting more data than we've ever gotten before, and we are able to now gather it in real time. We're able to act on it in real time. So these, the beauty of IoT is basically it's a proliferation of very, very cheap devices. Am I still that boring that you have to check the time? All right. I'm trying to explain the good, right? I mean, the good over here, we can also do a lot of trending. We can do a lot of predictability. We can do a lot of stuff with that information that's coming from disparate things. Here's a little fun fact for you. Did you know that the reason at the moment the Bureau of Meteorology is not giving us as accurate data as it did pre-COVID is because it actually gets a whole bunch of information from aeroplanes when they're in flight. Real-time data up in the higher stratosphere.
That's interesting.
It's very, very interesting. As the aeroplanes stopped flying, the Bureau were not able to give such accurate data anymore.
I'd like to highlight, that's a fun fact.
It's a definite fact. It's not funny.
It was kind of fun.
No, it wasn't funny.
No, but it was
fun.
kind of fun. It was
Fun.
interesting.
Was it?
If you could just repeat that.
It was definitely a fact, though. It was definitely a fact.
Well,
So
there's
that's
another
a good
fun
thing.
fact.
Oh, here we go.
One of the hidden benefits of hyperconnectivity around data is figuring out, having machines, figuring out relationships and trends that we wouldn't normally be able to.
Such as?
As an example, you've got machine learning, and that could predict with rising temperatures if price of cars would vary as a second-hand car that you're going to buy or not. Ideally, I mean, as in realistically, we would think there is no correlation between temperature and price of a car.
Yep.
But once you have all this data and you get a machine learning algorithm across it, you might actually find that there is a correlation between the two.
Well, actually,
Okay.
there's a working example of that, again, of things that you wouldn't necessarily correlate. And this was a business in the United States that started tracking free data information about cars in parking lots of major retailers. So they were just tracking the who parks more in which retailer, but they were then, as a result, able to predict their financial results long before the financial results needed to be reported, and therefore they could invest or bet on the results as well. So just taking public information that's just there and making a handsome profit out of it as well.
There was a company in US that used data of lift usage within a building to charge different tenants.
I'm sorry, I think
different
I fell
rates.
asleep.
Have we made the point?
I have to
Have we
look
made the
behind
point?
me to see who else is here in this incredibly great venue.
All right, now you say something interesting.
Okay, I think that there's definite benefits in terms of for everyday consumers. I think that there's definitely benefits in terms of life being made easier for you. I think that in terms of businesses, yes, utilization, even if you think about office space, being able to track what people are doing, that is of benefit. For our environment, I think absolutely 100%, if you can detect whether or not something is polluted, then you can work out where that pollution is coming from or in whatever in that particular area. That's good. You can stop things before they become extreme circumstances. When I'm thinking about the downside of all of this though, and I think, well, yes, security is always the number one concern.
Yep.
Right?
Before we go to the downside, there is one thing that we haven't
You have
covered
an
with regards
upside?
to hyperconnectivity though.
Wow.
And that's, by the definition, connecting people to things. Now, there are two types of, people connection.
Like people to people? Are you talking about?
There's nice
people to people or people
there's
to
him.
things, right?
Yeah.
But one is what we currently have, which isn't really connecting people to people using a device. That's not really connecting a person, right?
Well, people feel like
But
they're
in
connecting
future-
in social media.
Correct. But in future, imagine a world where you as a person are treated like a device by technology. So you have an interface that you can then plug yourself or your brain into that world of data. Now that
Nobody
would
wants
be
to
cool.
plug into your brain.
it would be like
Insane.
Matrix.
That got
Plug it in.
really
boom.
weird really quickly.
Yeah.
that's-
Can we get back to the pet feeder?
Can I die before that happens? I'm just saying.
So before anyone...
Well, given how old you are, that would probably
panics,
happen.
So look, getting to the proliferation of data. There's three things here. There's the devices, the sensors, the IoT stuff. There's the hyperconnectivity, but behind all of that is the data gathering. And that's where the two other subjects of where things can get a little bit tricky come into it. And that's around the security of the data and, of course, what gets used with that data. Now, even though we all give all our data away for free all the time because we like to use free apps and all that sort of stuff, that data is actually very, very valuable. And what's most interesting that people don't understand about this is that it's not about the data of things you've already done. It's the ability for companies who are buying this data to predict what you're going to do, right? That's where the money is. It's that predictability. The more sensors you have as an individual, the more information you're sending from the more disparate things makes you more predictable in your actions. So that's good from a consumer perspective. People are going to send you ads when you are looking for something to buy. It's bad on the criminal side of things because people will visit your home when they know you're not there, as an example,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So it's that ability to predict what's happening with that data. Now, that is why the security of that data is very important. but you're not going to get security in data when you're buying cheap, consumable IoT products made by companies like pet feeding companies that don't know anything about security or
when
IoT.
you get it as a gift.
Or when you get it as a gift.
Like if you give a gift to somebody who maybe not tech savvy and then they don't understand what the implications of that are, that's when it becomes
Same thing applies even on a larger scale. So we've got countries like US and Australia and a few other countries who are now refusing to buy Huawei products for their 5G infrastructure because they think that information could be sent to, a state-based evil actor. I don't know which state.
So,
I mean, they already don't buy our wine, so let's not pick on them anymore.
I think this is really leading into that first question of how safe is all these connected things. Like the very first question, and the reality is that you have to do your own due diligence. You have to do your homework. You have to look at what kind of encryption there is. Is there a password that you can put to it? There was an example of a 7-month-old baby who had in his room, it was IoT sensor devices that were controlling the temperature of the room and also the monitors and so forth. And the person that had hacked into that system raised the temperature up to, it was in America, it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is dangerous for a baby, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to think about, okay, well then how are you going to make sure that your connected device
What's
is safe?
90 degrees Fahrenheit in centigrade?
Oh, come on. You don't know the calculation?
Yeah, I mean...
But I think to summarize it, the security side, you got the downside of it, there are 3 different angles to it. One is data privacy, which is what we've talked about a lot about.
Make sure they've actually even got a privacy policy anyway.
Yep.
The other is the potential type of communication and that device uses, communication medium, I should say. So in terms of radio frequencies and, EMI and all of that. The third one, which we kind of touched on, is what users will, other companies and potentially other, state actors will have of that data.
Yep.
Well, that's...
You could...
No, you are 100% correct, because if that...
Could you just pause and replay that?
No.
That never happened. He's never...
I'm actually going to, edit that out. Delete it and gone. But no, it's very, very true, right? Like if you're uploading things to the cloud and the company is transferring data or transmitting data anyway, and it's sitting on their server. You may not even own that data that's coming in. So it's not here. You've that example that we spoke of earlier where it was the 8-year-old girl's parents that had the cameras in her room.
Yep.
For safety, that's kind of, a little bit beyond kind of safety, I think. However, where was that data going anyway to begin with? Is it being...
Well, that's the thing. So that particular story, and I'm sure we'll add it to the video, is it was just a normal camera that somebody wanted in their little 8-year-old's daughter's bedroom for whatever reason, but it was hacked. And what happened was a person started harassing the little 8-year-old, pretending to be Santa Claus, and basically just harassing the poor little girl. Now, of course, I have a question as to why you've got a camera inside your little girl's bedroom at the age of 8. I think that's a personal thing for me. I would say that's probably inviting trouble. But the problem is the trouble came, right? And that 8-year-old suffered because of it, right?
There is some good news in that, I think, and I could be really wrong here because I'm basing it on one article, right?
Good news. Wow.
But I think the general population is actually becoming a little bit smarter.
Wait.
Did you read?
Did you research?
Did you read?
Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
I actually researched this topic.
You didn't just plug it into the internet somewhere?
Yeah.
Well, that is how I do my research. But
Anyway, get to your point.
But if you look at the news for the last few days, WhatsApp decided to openly share data with Facebook platform, and now there's actually been a few articles about people exiting WhatsApp. That to me shows that the average population is now a little bit more wary about what they are sharing and on which platforms.
Well, I would dispute that. At one level, correct. People are going, oh dear, what people said was going to be private is no longer private. I'll move on. But ultimately, those people just move on to another platform, number one. And number two, it's not something you can escape. So there's a bit of naivety when you think that there's any way on the internet to keep things private. Once it's digital, it doesn't belong to you. That's just a fact.
Make it digital.
Even when you're off the internet, we're going a bit off topic over here, but even if you're just off the internet...
Off topic.
All right, I agree. So is it good?
We'll do another episode on that.
We will. Is it good? That is the question.
We keep asking the same question in all episodes, and And we also have the same answer, which is depending on the use cases,
Well, actually,
it can be
this
really
actually does
good.
fall under the good, the bad, the ugly. So it's kind of
Correct.
like a
So
silly
do you want to
question.
cover the good, bad, or the ugly?
No, I actually don't. What I want to say is like, why are we discussing it today? And I'll talk about the good.
Well, I can take a stab at that answer while you think of something that you may have read at some point in your life.
No research.
But I guess we're discussing it today because so many things, like so many things, it kind of creeps into your life and it's already there before you know it's there. So sometimes it's a good idea to bubble these subjects to the surface and go, hey guys, look, you may have got some Christmas presents, you might have some light bulbs or some pet feeders. I know I keep going back to those things, but at the end of the day, it's there. And if you're not buying it, believe me, your corporate entity is buying it. It's in your office. It's everywhere. So sometimes it's a good idea to talk about these things, just pause and go, yes, it's good. And these are the reasons why. Here are the things you need to know about. We can go there in a moment. And here is the downright scary bits that can happen, but are probably theoretical in nature.
So why don't we go into the good, the bad, and the ugly then?
Let's do it.
Yeah?
Do
you feel like there's something left unsaid?
No. Yes. Always.
No.
Always.
There is always
Okay.
plenty,
Okay,
but we
so-
only have
so
a few minutes.
there's 2 out of 3 people here that were like, hyperconnectivity, IoT. Let's move on to something
And
more
it's
interesting.
everywhere as she touches her hyper-connected watch.
Which knows what her temperature is, her heartbeat.
Correct.
No, it doesn't know my
Uploaded to
temperature.
the internet.
Or whatever. Good is, well...
Doesn't suit your personality to do good, but carry on.
Good.
So good is definitely ease to consumers. Like, you walk, like you say, I like walking into my house and saying, lights on.
Yeah, very
because
cool.
he's lazy.
And it's cool.
There are lots of businesses out there that like the fact that they can, gauge people's temperatures walking into their stores because you might be, COVID positive.
Your example was outdated, but carry on.
Whatever.
I would like to walk into the house and the lights be on without me saying anything, and the temperature already be at where I want it to be.
Still under good. Keep going.
Carry on.
Still good, apart from him, which is irritating. But
We need a new puppet.
we need to
This
do
one
that.
talks too much.
We do. But I think in terms of like all the environmental impacts, like when you look at Barcelona is saying that they've saved billions of dollars in using IoT sensors across their city, right?
And I think if I can hammer that point on the good side is it's cheap and you get more amazing data out of it. And data always helps make good decisions.
Not that I had finished talking, but
Can you say what I just said? Make it yours?
So rude. You should have pressed the buzzer on him.
I know, right? But he's
Oh.
with you today.
Well, you've
He
been
needs
on
to drink
good
alcohol.
for some time.
That's all I'm saying. He
Yes.
needs to,
Put some
drink
vodka
beer.
in there.
However, I think that if your city is able to not just reduce emissions and save waste, but also to save money so you can put it into more important things like health and education, I'm all for it. All right.
So
Bad.
all these things, all the regulatory side, the things that are supposed to look after consumers are lagging, right? So this stuff is proliferating in your homes, in your offices, in your water supply systems, in your environment, but we don't know how secure they are. And well, it's up to us, it's up to individuals who are not tech savvy because they're buying consumer goods to protect themselves. And I don't think people know from a bad perspective what the implications could be.
Ugly.
Ugly. I always get the ugly. I'm actually less
Why do you reckon
concerned
that is?
because I have good points. I make good points. I'm actually less concerned about what hackers will do because ultimately they are after money. And with money
And you don't
can
have
solve...
any, so you're
Correct.
safe. So.
Correct. Poor. I'm more concerned about what governments can do with that data. So where a state-based actor knowingly will actually use that data to control the population.
Well,
That's the ugly side of things.
it's interesting that you mentioned that because I was watching some documentary this morning that happened to talk about the value of data and so forth. And there's this one guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he was saying, I don't understand why people are always so, don't do that. They're always surprised. They give their data away to Facebook and then they get shocked when they hear that Facebook gave it to the government. It's like,
You need to learn how to tell a story, interesting and fast.
Based on
Okay.
viewers' feedback, they would like to hear the end of that story. So,
All right,
Summarize
go in
it.
the story.
I forgot it. Sorry, viewers.
and he's not drinking either.
No,
Just Hit him up on Facebook.
it's the concept of
That's right.
privacy. We could I could talk forever on privacy because it doesn't exist. I'm
True
done.
that.
Thank God he
True
didn't
that.
talk forever.
Wow, okay, I'm going to go whinge file. Oh yes, I have missed the whinge file.
I forgot what my whinge was.
So in an earlier episode, Sven's whinge was where did facts and data go? It was a really great question to ask, I think. Now my question is like, why aren't people using them? So
What, the actual facts, if you can find one?
No, so
If you can find
there's
the fact?
actual facts and data out there, but people like to argue against opinion, which is like, knock yourself out. But it actually is nothing without facts and data.
I agree with that. Because, honestly, I've always said, what's the point of talking about climate change? Just understand that it's happening. Like, don't worry about the facts. Just stop shitting in your own nest. You don't need many facts to work that out. Yeah.
Well,
So I like that
when
one.
somebody said to me, why do you keep saying facts? Where are the facts and data?
Yeah.
That was a very long whinge. Sven?
So my whinge is probably around what's recently been happening, and
your face.
in the wonderful country of the United States of America, which is not all that united at the moment. But I was having a conversation with someone saying, how is it that these narcissistic megalomaniac dictators come to power? We should study that, said this person. And my whinge is, we shouldn't study that. We should study the people that follow that, right? We should understand what kind of persona falls down into that rabbit hole, because a narcissist on their own is just your crazy uncle, right? A narcissist that has followers, he's the crazy uncle. No one really cares. He's a narcissist.
No followers, it's fine.
No followers. So the world is safe, right? But
Check out my blood. Plenty of followers.
When you get that same kind of personality with, 71 million followers, shit gets real. So to me, if you're going to do a PhD on something, don't do it on the leader. Do it on the people that follow them. That's not even a whinge. That's just a public warning.
Wow.
My whinge is a risky one, because I might sound like a Trump supporter.
Wait.
But, yeah.
Breathe and think about it.
Yeah.
Did you need to run it past us?
Masks.
Okay. No, that's
Masks. Oh boy.
My whinge is the masks. There is no proper definition of, as in, it's random as to where you can use it, where you cannot, where you should not, where is high risk, where is low risk. It's a pain in the backside, and all we've done is just created tons of rubbish
But your
everywhere.
whinge is not the mask. Your whinge is the rules.
And
the
now, I'd
mask.
just like to say that we're at Moondog World. Great place, Preston in Melbourne. If you can't see that great emblem there, it's a really good place. They do really good beer. They've got the new fizzes as well.
Oh,
you
what I
can
know.
buy in a can. So good. Oh yeah, you don't know about beer at all.
There's no alcohol in this place.
Anyway, let us know your comments. Comment, blah blah. You know the drill, and we'll see you next time. Hey DD viewers, so I was really surprised that the #1 whinge was, when is your next episode? So don't worry, we've got another one coming shortly.